Hello and welcome back to the afternoon session. I am Allison Hall. We have been watching this hearing in Wisconsin for Darrell Brooks Jr., where he had applied to represent himself and the judge has granted it. He will now be representing himself and they are going over various motions as to how this case is going to work. So I'd love to bring in my guest for this afternoon who has been patiently waiting, Lisa Lockwood. We've been watching this together. Your initial reactions on the judge granting this request for Brooks to be representing himself. How do you think that's going to go?
Allison, I think the judge made the right decision because she said all along these pretrial proceedings, he has shown himself to be competent and coherent. So with that, it's going to be hard for her to deny him that right as a sovereign citizen to represent himself. But I think she's going to have her hands full because she knows he's argumentative. She knows that he's obstructed in past pretrial proceedings, and she kind of knows what his temperament's going to be. So I think it's going to be kind of like a sideshow, a roadshow, so to speak, as this progresses with the state, the prosecution talking to him and trying to get responses, and his temperament just being very combative.
Very combative. Just in this hearing alone, as it sounded like the judge was granting his request, he was objecting left, right, and center. She could barely get a word out. Multiple times had to stop and say, "Let me finish." And if he did just let her finish, he would eventually learn that she was granting his request. It was quite something to see and possibly a preview into what this trial is going to look like. Lisa, what is he missing out on by not having a criminal defense attorney represent him? I mean, as the judge pointed out herself, the prosecutors have a full team. They can spread the work across several people. It's going to be a little challenging for him.
It really is. He doesn't have a law license, so he doesn't know the terminology. He has limited opportunity to preview the information that he gets because he's in a jail cell. So when he receives it, he has inability to actually get out of his cell to do certain research that he needs to do to prepare for it. So nobody can get a law degree overnight. So the preparation and what's to come is going to be an issue when the judge says it has not been filed on your behalf. You didn't do that. If you needed to do that, it should have been done. Subpoenas for witnesses for himself. He talked about having his own, and he didn't know what the entire list was for the witnesses. So now he has to backtrack and do things in order to represent himself in the best way that he can. And I think, he's going to be leaps and bounds behind the prosecution.
Yeah, he definitely has his work cut out for him. It also came up in the hearing that his own mother wrote a letter to the judge saying that she did not feel that her son was competent to stand trial. What do you make of that? And do you think he's competent to stand trial?
Well, I'm going to do it based on what we already learned. And the defense of temporary insanity or the insanity, not guilty by insanity, was already dismissed because he had already had an evaluation. A mother is going to do whatever they can to protect their child, but also a mother knows their child better than anybody. So the fact that she came forward and she said that, I could see Darrell Brooks probably thinking that just my mom trying to protect me, and he feels completely confident in his own ability right now.
Yeah, he certainly seems confident. We're going to head back into that hearing continuing right now in Wisconsin. Let's take a look. All right, so they're chatting about jury selection, which will begin within the next few weeks. Lisa, I'd love to chat with you about this because the big question on my mind is how is a jury going to react to Brooks representing himself? How do you think that's going to go?
This is so challenging because obviously he has a right to do that. But he's the person who caused all of this. So when you have witnesses, when you have victims who are there at the parade being questioned by him, it's just an utter slap in the face. And we've seen this in other trials where that has happened, where we had somebody who, was involved in a domestic situation and a kidnapping of his wife, and he was questioning her. So kind of re-victimizing the victims. It's not pretty. It's unfortunate, but he has that right as a U.S. citizen.
Yeah, we just saw that. I think that was just last month, Lisa. I know we talked about it at the time. It's so interesting and, quite frankly, as you said, re-victimizing the victim to see a defendant questioning a victim, that's going to be hard to watch for us and especially for the jury. I also want to talk about the prosecutors. Does him representing himself pose any difficulties for them? I mean, they're obviously used to sparring back and forth with other attorneys, and this time it's going to be the defendant.
I think that would all depend on any other cases that they've had, the familiarity of somebody who representing themselves, or is this a first time out? Because it is rare to have a defendant represent themselves. Extremely rare, but it does happen. So I think they'll probably do something similar as the judge is, offering the courtesy, asking particular questions along the way, making sure that he understands that, because the last thing they want is a mistrial for any type of prejudice or bias on this case. And I think they're all pros sitting in those chairs right now.
Yeah, absolutely. And I just have to say, Judge Doro is certainly conducting herself like quite a pro. She is exercising a lot of patience as she goes through all of this, and I think she's going to need it for this upcoming trial. We're going to go back into that hearing right now in Wisconsin. Let's have a listen.